Tai Truong was born in a refugee camp in Bangkok, Thailand, after his parents fled Vietnam by boat, and he was named after the country that gave them shelter. When he was 2 years old, his family was sponsored by a church group to come to Canada. They settled in Timmins, Ontario, where they faced many challenges and opportunities as newcomers. Growing up in northern Ontario, Truong experienced racism and bullying from some of his peers. He also struggled with learning English and adapting to a different culture. He found solace in sports, music, and movies. He especially loved watching police movies like Lethal Weapon and Die Hard. He admired the heroes who fought for justice and protected the innocent. Truong also faced a personal tragedy when he was 12 years old. His father, who worked as a mechanic, died in a car crash on his way to work. Truong was devastated by the loss of his role model and mentor. He vowed to honor his father's memory by working hard and helping others. Truong's interest in law enforcement grew stronger as he got older. He decided to pursue a career in policing after graduating from high school. He enrolled in the Police Foundations program at Cambrian College in Sudbury, Ontario. He excelled in his studies and graduated with honors. Truong joined the York Regional Police in 2002 as a constable. He quickly rose through the ranks and became a detective, a sergeant, a staff sergeant, and an inspector. He led several high-profile investigations and operations, such as Project Flicker, which dismantled an international child exploitation network, and Project Convalesce, which rescued dozens of human trafficking victims. Truong's achievements and leadership earned him respect and recognition from his colleagues and superiors. He also received several awards and commendations, such as the Police Exemplary Service Medal and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. In 2021, Truong applied for the position of Chief of Police of the London Police Service. He was selected among hundreds of candidates for his experience, vision, and values. He became the first Vietnamese Canadian police chief in Canada's history. Truong said he was humbled and honored by the opportunity to serve the London community. He said he owed his success to Canada, which gave him and his family a chance to start a new life. He said he wanted to give back to the country that welcomed him with open arms. Darryl Long Vu is a Vietnamese refugee who became London's top cop and owes his success to Canada. He was born in Saigon in 1974, just before the fall of South Vietnam to the Communist forces. He and his family escaped by boat and were rescued by a Canadian naval ship. They settled in Toronto, where Darryl grew up and developed a passion for law enforcement. He joined the York Regional Police in 1998 as a constable and quickly rose through the ranks. He worked in various units, such as homicide, drugs, guns and gangs, intelligence, and organized crime. He also became an expert in human trafficking, leading several major investigations and rescuing dozens of victims. He received many awards and commendations for his work, including the Police Exemplary Service Medal and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. In 2017, he was promoted to superintendent and became the second in command of the York Regional Police. He oversaw the operations of more than 2,000 officers and civilians and managed a budget of over $300 million. He also led several strategic initiatives, such as enhancing community engagement, improving diversity and inclusion, and implementing new technologies. In 2020, he made history by becoming the first ever visible minority police chief in London, Ontario, and one of the youngest top cops in the country. He was chosen from a pool of over 40 candidates for his leadership skills, vision, and experience. He took charge of the London Police Service, which serves a population of over 400,000 people and faces challenges such as mental health, homelessness, domestic violence, and drug abuse. He has been praised by his colleagues, peers, and community members for his professionalism, integrity, innovation, and compassion. He has also been recognized as a role model and mentor for young people, especially those from diverse backgrounds. He credits his success to his family, his faith, his mentors, and his Canadian upbringing. He says he is proud to serve the City of London and to give back to the country that gave him a chance at life. The challenges and opportunities for integration and belonging among the Vietnamese refugees and migrants in Britain, and how they have negotiated their identities, cultures, and loyalties between their homeland and their host society. The Vietnamese refugees and migrants in Britain are a diverse and complex group, with different histories, motivations, and experiences of displacement, resettlement, and incorporation. They have faced various challenges and opportunities for integration and belonging in their host society, and have negotiated their identities, cultures, and loyalties between their homeland and their host society in different ways. The first wave of Vietnamese refugees arrived in Britain between 1975 and 1979, following the end of the Vietnam War. They were mostly ethnic Chinese who had fled persecution by the communist regime in Vietnam. They were accepted by the British government as part of an international humanitarian effort to resettle the so-called boat people who had escaped by sea. Around 19,000 Vietnamese refugees were resettled in Britain between 1975 and the 1990s. The arrival of Vietnamese refugees in Britain took place in the context of unemployment, housing shortages, and increasingly restrictive immigration policy. The refugees faced discrimination, racism, and isolation from the mainstream society. They also had to cope with trauma, loss, and cultural shock. They settled mainly in London and other urban areas, where they formed tight-knit communities based on kinship, religion, and ethnicity. They relied on mutual support networks, voluntary organizations, and ethnic businesses to survive and adapt. They also maintained strong ties with their homeland through remittances, visits, and media. The second wave of Vietnamese migrants arrived in Britain from the late 1980s onwards, mainly as asylum seekers or illegal entrants. They were mostly ethnic Vietnamese who had fled poverty, oppression, or environmental disasters in Vietnam. They were also motivated by the desire for better education, work, or family reunification. They faced more difficulties than the first wave in gaining legal status, accessing public services, and finding employment. They also encountered hostility and suspicion from both the host society and the established Vietnamese community. They settled mostly in London but also in other regions where there were fewer support structures or opportunities. They tended to be more dispersed, diverse, and invisible than the first wave. The integration and belonging of the Vietnamese refugees and migrants in Britain have been influenced by various factors such as generation, class, gender, religion, education, language, ethnicity, legal status, and political orientation. The first generation has generally been more attached to their homeland and culture than the second generation, who has been more exposed to British society and culture. The second generation has also faced more challenges in balancing their dual identities and loyalties between their parents' culture and their own culture. The class differences among the Vietnamese have also affected their integration and belonging. The middle-class professionals have been more successful in achieving economic and social mobility than the working-class laborers, who have been more marginalized and exploited. The gender roles among the Vietnamese have also changed over time due to migration. The women have gained more autonomy and empowerment than the men, who have faced more unemployment and emasculation. The Vietnamese refugees and migrants in Britain have negotiated their identities, cultures, and loyalties between their homeland and their host society in different ways. Some have assimilated into British society and culture by adopting its values, norms, and practices. Some have maintained their distinctiveness by preserving their traditions, customs, and beliefs. Some have hybridized by combining elements of both cultures to create a new identity. Some have transnationalized by engaging with multiple cultures across borders through travel, communication, or consumption. The Vietnamese refugees and migrants in Britain have contributed to the diversity and richness of British society and culture through their skills, talents, values, cuisines, arts, religions, languages, etc. They have also faced challenges such as discrimination, racism, trafficking, exploitation, poverty, isolation, etc. They have shown resilience, adaptability, creativity, solidarity, and hope in overcoming these challenges and pursuing their dreams in their new home.